Hey everyone, looks like I'm going at this alone. I originally had two other people who I thought were gonna join, but I think they're too busy. So I'll try to get them in on chapter 2. This is chapter 1 of Cheerlee's Garden. I do not own the fanfic, and I hope you all enjoy. Fuck you, Mom. The entire theater complex was abuzz with the voices of 100 excited ponies as Cheerlee peeked out carefully from behind the curtains hiding the stage. She saw rows upon rows of ponies sitting in the stands or moving between them, talking to each other as they waited or tried to make one last trip to get some food and beverages before the show. She glanced quickly to the left and saw that the musicians had already set up in the orchestra pits. Oh my fucking god. Blah blah blah, I don't want to hear it. She glanced quickly to the left and saw that the musicians had already set up in the orchestra pits in the front of the stage. They'd only be needed for a few scenes, but Cheerleee was still glad to have them. Seeing such a big crowd gathered there made her a bit nervous, even though this had all been her idea. Almost all of the seats were taken, and Cheerleee knew there were barely enough to accommodate the entire population of Ponyville. The show would be subjected to the scrutiny of a great many ponies' eyes, indeed. She retreated back behind the curtains, hoping nobody had seen her. She felt that would have been somewhat unprofessional. Everything seemed to be in order as she inspected the stage for the last time. All the props and the equipment were beautifully made, straight from the hooves of the masters. Cheerleee had only needed to tell them what she wanted, and they had provided it without any questions, even though certain items must have seemed unnecessary. After all, they didn't know what she had in mind for this night, while she did. She was quite sure some of their props would make even a professional theater jealous. The stage was divided into sections, each denoting its supposed location. This way, they didn't need time or backstage ponies to change the decor before each act, cutting down on the time needed for scene changes. Cheerleee was a big fan of this system, as it meant there was one less thing for her to worry about. She turned back and headed for stage left, where her students were busy getting all dressed up. It was a total chaos, with bits and pieces of costumes scattered across the room, like sprinkles on a cupcake, and at the center of this mess were the Q Mark Crusaders, as Cheerleee had come to expect. The fact none of them had sprouted a making trouble cutie mark yet surprised her more each and every day. Hey, that's my helmet, Scootaloo told Sweetie Belle accusingly. Yours is way over there. No, it isn't. No, it sure isn't, she replied as she lifted the knightly helmet off of her head and held it out for Scootaloo to inspect. This one has a hole for my horn, see? Are y'all sure it ain't my helmet? Apple Bloom said as she scratched her head. The king wears a crown, the other two snapped back. Cheerleee sighed as she quickly glanced at her other students. Silver Spoon and Dumb and Tiara seemed to progress orderly, if slowly, mainly due to how they constantly flourished and admired each other after every article of clothing they put on, and after every single brush of their mane. Snips was, to her great surprise, ready and waiting. The fact that Snails was backstage on tech duty might have had something to do with that, she mused. She remained confident they'd make it in time, as she had the great foresight to start them all on preparations much earlier than any pony would have thought necessary. She had come to know this little group throughout the months, and she was prepared for almost anything. Nothing could possibly go wrong today. She had put too much planning and work into it to see it all fail now. She smiled as she invoiced the peace, quiet tranquility, and relief she'd feel when this was all over. All right, students, she chimed. Let me just run you through the steps one last time. There was much groaning to be heard across the room, but Cheerliee wasn't taking any chances with this bunch. And then taking a little pause to look at texts or anything. And yes, I do this sometimes. I pretty much do this. Okay. Okay. If you still have a part to play but aren't needed on set, come back here. If your role is all played out, exit the stage on the other side. You'll be able to watch the rest of the play from there. That is, if you didn't see it through already. If you didn't see it enough already. She paused for a moment to ask certain every pony was listening, and they all nodded. I should have said in the beginning of this one as well. I do not voice act at all, so no voice acting. Just heads up. Okay. Okay. If you forget your lines, just improvise or pick up from the point in the script you do recall. If the pony you're playing with skips some of your lines, don't try to correct them. Remember, we may notice if some pony doesn't follow the script, but the audience won't as long as you keep the dialogue flowing. The fillies and Snips nodded again, and Cheerliee smiled at them. Wait, the fillies? So Snips is like the only boy, pretty much, then. He's the only male. Snips gets a pat on the back. True trooper right there. Good, now get ready. I have to see to the opening of the show, so be ready and on set in no more than 10 minutes. She walked away as the young ponies got back to it, and Cheerliee thought they seemed to quarrel and delay slightly less this time, though that was probably just her imagination. The last one she had to check up on was Snails, whom she put backstage due to his absolute inability to do even the most basic of acting. All he'd have to do there was listen for certain cues and then carry out one specific action. She had even written all of that down on a list that was easy enough to follow, even for him. Up to this point, he'd done okay during their practices, but you never knew. She gave him a few reminders, and he reassured her that he wouldn't let her down, all the while wearing that idiot grin of his. Cheerliee sighed as she went back to the main stage, resigned to the fact that she'd have to leave this one up to fate. Dear God, I'm so tired. I shouldn't have done this while tired as hell. She was pleased to see the other ponies already gathered and in position when she got there, all of them sitting around a U-shaped table, the open end of which was pointed into the direction of the crowd. Applebloom was dressed up as someone of royal descent, a shining crown on her head and a regal mantle flowing down from her shoulders. To her right were the remaining two Kiamar Crusaders, both dressed in exaggerated versions of knightly armor. Sweetie Belle's was colored as white as her own coat, while Scootaloo's was a bright red. Considering this glaring difference in color, Cheerliee wondered how they could possibly mistake each other's helmets for their own. Anyway. Shit. I actually have to end this broadcast here. I hear my parents calling me. I will try to continue it later tonight. So there might be a part 2 tonight. See you later, everybody. Hope you all enjoyed up to this point. There's no blood and gore to this point as far as I know. I haven't read this at all. This is my first time reading it. I hope you all enjoyed for now. See you all later.